A while back I made a video about broken arrow incidents. Those are accidents involving nuclear weapons that do not create a risk of nuclear war. Like nukes just accidentally falling out of a bomb bay and being lost at the bottom of the sea, or being involved in mid-air plane collisions. In that video I mispronounced nuclear as nuclear numerous times and called the state of Maryland, Maryland. In other words, it's a classic Qxir video. Well, in that video I mentioned that there have also been incidents involving nuclear systems that do create a risk of war. There's been a few of them, unsettlingly, and you've probably never even heard of a couple of incidents, despite the world-threatening stakes. Yes, we live in a timeline where humans have apparently decided not to annihilate the planet completely with nuclear weapons, opting instead to destroy it with alternative options, but there have been times where we've come very, worryingly close to that not being the case. Today we'll be looking at one such time when a nuclear system malfunction nearly led to the dooming of mankind, but we were all saved by the intelligence of a single man. Now there's a scary idea. Stanislav Petrov was born in 1939 in Soviet Russia, and that is the most communist sentence ever said by man. He attended the Kiev Higher Engineering Radio Technical College, and after graduating in 1972, he joined the Soviet Air Defense Forces. In 1983, he was a lieutenant colonel and the officer on duty in a bunker near Moscow. This duty involved monitoring the command center for the Soviet Early Warning Network for potential nuclear strikes against Russia. For context, this was during the Cold War, when mounting tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union were threatening to escalate to nuclear warfare. The thing about nuclear weapons is they were a game changer for war. If you had nuclear capability, you basically had the power to win a war in an instant. The problem was, it wasn't long before everybody else started getting their grubby little hands on them too. So then of course you need to have more nukes than they do, and then you gotta install them in their neighbouring countries, and then you gotta put them on submarines and intercontinental missiles, and eventually, where once you had all the power, now no one has any power. Why? Because there are so many nukes on the playing field, if any single nation were to use theirs, there'd be retaliation, and then everyone would join in, and then the whole world gets destroyed. It's called mutually assured destruction. We had created weapons so powerful in quantities so great that we couldn't use them or we'd all perish. At this point, perhaps any other species of intelligent life would look around and realise the depths of their warmongering depravity, put away their weapons for good, and join their former enemies in pledged stewardship of the planet. But, humans being humans, we decided the only solution to the threat of mutually assured destruction was the development of first strike capability, the ability to launch an overwhelming nuclear strike so quickly that the enemy is totally and completely destroyed before they have the chance to launch a successful counterattack. So not only is it important that your missiles are powerful, fast, plentiful, and well placed, but your detection systems better be too. Elsewise, your adversary could have first strike capability over you, and then he might realise the best thing would be to use it while he still has it, as your very existence poses the threat of his destruction. This is the state the US and the Soviet Union were in 1983. Both sides were under the belief that the other side would be the first to launch the nukes, and even though neither side actually wanted to use them, well fuck, if you think the enemy is going to do it first, maybe you have no choice. It was a state of total paranoia, and as the arms race progressed, it only got worse. By 1983, it seemed total destruction could be a button press away at any moment. Imagine then Stanislav Petrov's shock when in the early hours of the morning of the 26th of September 1983, a siren went off and the computer alerted that there was a missile headed for Russia, followed by another, then another, then another, then another. 5 intercontinental missiles were on their way. Petrov was frozen with terror, and understandably so. This machine was alerting him that in just a few minutes, a violent end was about to be wrought upon the world, and he lived there. His official instructions? to immediately report a nuclear strike to the top brass, who would then have just minutes to scramble a counter-offensive, at least ensuring that their attacker would also be destroyed. That's right, they couldn't do anything to save themselves, just make sure that they took the enemy down with them. Mutually assured destruction. So what did Petrov do then? He ignored his instructions and reported the alert as a false alarm. He just had a feeling that something wasn't right. And he was right. It wasn't right. Actually, the satellite had picked up sunlight on high-altitude clouds as missiles. There was no nukes at all. It was just clouds. Yet, had Petrov reported the alert as his commands ordered him, his superiors could have decided to initiate the counterattack and launch nukes against the US. Then, the US would have seen the Soviet nukes and actually fired missiles, and then they'd both be destroyed. A little bit like the song 99 Red Balloons, where the narrator releases a bunch of balloons that are mistakenly picked up by nuclear detection systems and instigate a nuclear war that destroys the world. That song came out the very same year as this event, actually, although at the time no one knew about it. And the narrative is a little different in the original German release, 99 Luftballons, with which you may be more familiar, depending on where you're from. Back on topic. So how did Stanislav Petrov know the alerts were false alarms? Well, he didn't. He was kinda just guessing. He knew if the US were to launch a strike on Russia, it would be with a force intended to immediately overwhelm them. And that takes more than 5 measly missiles. He also didn't really trust the computer systems. They were relatively new, and the speed at which they seemed to be processing the verification checks on the missiles seemed suspiciously fast. Petrov had a civilian education in IT, which made him unique on his team. His colleagues were all professional soldiers, and he believed they would have been a lot more trusting of the system. He believed that had the same thing occurred on anyone else's shift, it would have been reported as a nuclear attack. Despite potentially saving the world, Petrov said he was neither punished nor rewarded for his actions after they came under investigation. The whole event was kept quiet until after the collapse of the Soviet Union in the 90s, when a general involved in the incident went public with it. So nobody knew this had even happened until a decade later. Keep that in mind. The world's population was going about their daily life completely unaware that in a bunker somewhere, a man was deciding whether or not to report a nuclear strike. Really consider the power of unseen forces in your life and enjoy your existential dread. Stanislav Petrov retired early from the military and in later years suffered a nervous breakdown. Thankfully, his actions were finally acknowledged when they were made public, and he received worldwide praise. He was honoured with awards and commendations, including 2 World Citizen Awards in 2004. Sadly, Stanislav Petrov died on the 19th of May 2017 of pneumonia. A tale of the planetary annihilation that almost came to pass, and the man who made sure it didn't. Have you heard this story before? Seems like a pretty important one to be ignorant of, right? Just think, there could be a man in a bunker right now who's about to make the wrong choice. Well, probably not. The threat of nuclear war is not quite as present as it was back then, and I'd guess the systems and protocols surrounding this stuff is more advanced now. But there is a man in a bunker right now. Well, not a bunker, more of a hovel really. And completely out of your perception, he works tirelessly to make YouTube video. It's me, I'm talking about myself. This analog kind of fell apart due to shoddy workmanship. So I'll just say I unleash one of these videos on the world every week. And if you don't want to live in fear of not knowing what I'm up to, you should subscribe. Thanks.
The computer. I picked up the telephone handset, spoke to my superiors and reported that the alarm was false. But I, myself, was not sure until the very last moment. I knew perfectly well that nobody would be able to correct my mistake if I had made one.